You know, sometimes the loudest place in the world is not the crowd, it's not the city, it's not even the noise of people talking about you. The loudest place is inside of you. That voice, that echo, that question, who am I really when nobody's watching? And most of us, we run from that silence. We fill it up with people, with distractions, with endless noise, because being alone feels scary. But let me tell you something, the silence is not your enemy. That solitude you've been avoiding, that's the space where your power lives. That's the room where you find yourself when you are alone. You stop performing, you stop pretending, you stop living for the applause. You finally look in the mirror and you see not who the world told you to be, but who you truly are. And in that stillness, you discover strength you didn't even know you had. So don't be afraid of being alone. Don't run from it. Embrace it. Because sometimes being by yourself is not loneliness. It's preparation. It's healing. It's transformation. And it might just be the best thing you could ever do for yourself. Silence. You see, most people treat silence like it's an empty room, a void, something to escape. They turn the TV on when they're home alone. They scroll endlessly through their phones. They call people just to fill that space. But silence isn't emptiness. Silence is fullness. It's like standing in front of a blank canvas, and most of us are too scared to pick up the brush. But when you stop running, when you allow the quiet to wrap around you, something happens. You start hearing the whispers of your own soul. You start noticing the beat of your heart, the rhythm of your breathing, and you realize that the silence isn't quiet at all. It's alive. It's speaking to you. It's reminding you of every dream you've buried under noise, every truth you've ignored, every promise you've made to yourself. Silence is the invitation to return home to yourself without masks, without filters, without pretending to be something for someone else. And the moment you stop being afraid of that silence, you step into the deepest power you'll ever know. In silence, you find clarity. Think about it. When the world is loud, your mind is cluttered. You can't hear yourself think, let alone dream. But when everything slows down, when you put down the phone, when you sit in that quiet space, clarity begins to rise up like sunlight breaking through clouds. Suddenly, the things that once felt confusing begin to make sense. The decisions you were wrestling with, the doubts that clouded your mind, they begin to fade because silence has a way of stripping away the noise of everyone else's opinion. You see, the world will always try to speak over you, tell you who you are, what you should do, where you should go. But silence clears the path. It reveals what's real, what's important, what's worth your time and energy. And the clarity you gain in silence, it's sharper than any advice, stronger than any opinion. It's your own voice finally getting the chance to rise above the crowd. That's power. Silence also teaches you discipline. Most people think strength is only about muscles, about endurance, about pushing through hardship. But true strength, it's learning to sit still. It's learning not to escape every uncomfortable moment. It's the discipline of facing yourself when you'd rather run away. And make no mistake, silence can be uncomfortable at first. It forces you to confront your fears, your regrets, the things you've been avoiding for years. But if you can sit in that discomfort, if you can face the storm inside of you, then you're building a strength no one can take away. You're learning patience, self-control, resilience. Silence is like a weight room for the mind and spirit. You don't get stronger by avoiding it. You get stronger by staying in it. And when you build that inner discipline, you become unshakable. The noise of the world doesn't move you anymore because you've already conquered the hardest noise, the one inside. And let's be honest, silence heals. We don't even realize how much energy we give away every single day. To conversations that don't matter, to arguments that lead nowhere, to endless scrolling, endless chatter, endless performance. And then we wonder why we're exhausted, why we feel empty, even when surrounded by people. Silence is where you stop leaking energy. It's where your spirit gets to rest, where your mind finally exhales. In that quiet, your heart gets a chance to mend. Your soul begins to patch up the wounds that life has carved into it. Healing doesn't happen in chaos. Healing needs space. It needs stillness. Just like a broken bone needs a cast, your soul needs silence to recover. It's not weakness to step away, it's wisdom. And when you let silence heal you, you come back stronger, clearer, more whole than you've ever been. Silence also sparks creativity. Some of the greatest ideas, inventions, works of art They weren't born in chaos. They were born in the quiet moments when someone allowed themselves to just be still. Because when the noise is gone, the imagination wakes up. The mind begins to paint pictures, to dream bigger, to connect dots it couldn't connect before. You've got to understand, silence is not just about hearing less. It's about listening more. Listening to the possibilities, the inspiration that has been waiting for you to turn down the volume of the world. And once you start tapping into that silence, you'll find ideas pouring out of you, visions you didn't even know you had. The greatest breakthroughs don't always happen on a stage or in a boardroom. Sometimes they happen when you're alone in a quiet room, listening to the silence speak. Silence gives you authority over yourself, because when you learn how to master silence, you learn how to master life. Think about it. Most people react to everything around them. Someone insults them, they snap back. The phone dings, they immediately check. The crowd cheers, they perform harder. But silence teaches you control. It teaches you how to respond, not react. How to hold your ground when everyone else is rushing. How to wait when patience is required. That control, that self-mastery, it makes you untouchable. You don't get tossed around by the waves of life because you've learned how to anchor yourself in silence. And when you walk into a room with that kind of stillness, people feel it. You don't even have to raise your voice. Your presence speaks louder than words. And the most powerful part of silence, it connects you to something greater. You see, when all the noise fades, you realize you're not truly alone. There's a presence in the silence, a wisdom, a guidance, a peace that surpasses explanation. Call it what you want, God, the universe, your higher self, but it's real. And in those moments of silence, you begin to feel held, directed, strengthened by something beyond your own understanding. And often you feel like you are supposed to feel that deep healing. Because that's why the power of silence is so transformative. It's not just about being alone, it's about realizing you are never really alone. In that quiet, you discover strength beyond your own, vision beyond your own, courage beyond your own. And once you've tasted that power, you'll never run from silence again. You'll seek it, you'll honor it, you'll let it guide you. Finding your true identity is not about putting something new on, it's about taking things off. The world will try to dress you in layers that don't belong to you. Expectations, labels, judgments, stereotypes. People will call you things you never asked to be called. They'll tell you what you're supposed to want, how you're supposed to act, what you're supposed to achieve. And after a while, if you're not careful, you start believing them. You start wearing their voices like clothing until you can't even remember what your own skin feels like. But when you step into solitude, when you strip away the noise, you begin to peel off all those layers. You start to see yourself, raw and unfiltered, not as the world says you are, but as you truly are. That's the moment identity begins, not with addition, but with subtraction. You have to understand your true identity has always been with you, but it gets buried. Buried under family expectations, under cultural norms, under the pressure to fit in. And the reason so many people feel lost is because they've been living their whole life as a reflection of what others wanted from them, not who they are inside. Silence and solitude create the environment for rediscovery. Alone, you hear your own laughter without influence. You feel your own passions without approval. You recognize your own values without compromise. That's when the question shifts from, who do they want me to be, to who am I when no one is watching? That shift is freedom. That shift is the beginning of identity. And finding your true identity is not a destination, it's a process. It's not like one day you wake up, declare who you are, and it never changes. No, identity is like sculpting. Every day in silence, you chisel away at the stone of falsehood, the heavy weight of other people's opinions. Every day you discover something new about yourself that was hiding beneath the surface. And sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it feels like you're losing pieces of yourself, but what you're really doing is losing the lies. Every tear, every doubt, every lonely night is part of the carving. And with each moment, the masterpiece beneath begins to reveal itself. You, not the version that pleases everyone, not the version that hides behind fear, but the version that stands unshaken in truth. But identity doesn't come without courage. To truly find yourself, you have to be willing to disappoint people. You have to be willing to be misunderstood, even rejected. Because when you step into your authentic self, not everyone will clap. Some will resist. Some will mock. Some will say you've changed. And they'll be right. You have. But the truth is, you're not changing into someone else. You're returning to yourself. You're becoming the person you were before the world told you who to be. That takes guts. That takes heart. But the reward is living a life that actually feels like yours. Waking up in the morning and not wearing a mask. Walking through the day and not carrying a weight that doesn't belong to you. That's worth every risk, every tear, every lonely moment along the way. Your true identity is connected to purpose. You can't really know what you're meant to do until you know who you are. That's why so many people wander, chasing things that don't satisfy, pursuing careers, relationships, lifestyles that leave them empty. They're building a life on top of a false foundation. But when you know who you are, you know what fits you. You stop forcing yourself into spaces that don't align with your soul. You start saying no to what doesn't serve you and yes to what fuels you. And suddenly, life begins to feel lighter, clearer, fuller. Purpose isn't something you have to chase. It flows out of identity. And once you find it, once you lock into it, you'll never again waste time on things that drain you because you know who you are and what you're here for. But let me tell you this, finding your true identity requires honesty, brutal honesty. You can't discover yourself while lying to yourself. You can't keep pretending you're happy where you're miserable, that you're strong where you're broken, that you're satisfied where you're starving. Solitude forces you to confront those truths. Alone, there's no one to perform for. Alone, there's no audience to fool. Alone, the mirror doesn't lie. And that honesty, though painful, is liberating. Because when you finally stop lying to yourself, you create space for healing, for growth, for authenticity. Honesty is the soil where identity grows. Without it, you're just building another mask. With it, you're finally free to step into your truth. And the most beautiful thing about finding your true identity, it's unshakable. When you know who you are, the world can't shake you. They can call you names. They can doubt your abilities. They can reject your presence. But none of it sticks. Because you're rooted. You've done the work in solitude. You wrestle with the silence. You faced your own reflection. And you've come out knowing your worth. That kind of identity is not given by applause, so it can't be taken by rejection. It doesn't rise when people praise you, and it doesn't fall when they criticize you. It just is. And that is the greatest gift you can give yourself. The freedom to live in truth, unshaken, unwavering, unstoppable. Healing through solitude is one of the most misunderstood blessings in life. Most people run from being alone because they think it means emptiness, they think it means loneliness, they think it means something is wrong with them. But solitude is not abandonment, solitude is medicine. It's the quiet space where your soul finally gets a chance to rest, to breathe, to mend the wounds that the noise of the world has kept open. Because the truth is, as long as you're surrounded by noise, you don't face the pain, you just cover it. You keep moving, keep distracting, keep pretending. But the moment you step away, the moment you let the silence sit with you, the real healing begins. Solitude is not a punishment. It's an invitation to become whole again. In solitude, the wounds you've been carrying finally come into the light. The heartbreaks, the betrayals, the disappointments, the regrets, all the things you buried under busyness surface in that quiet. And yes, it can hurt at first. It can feel like ripping the bandage off a wound you didn't want to see, but you can't heal what you won't face. That's why solitude is so powerful. It gives you the courage to look at your scars, to name your pain, to acknowledge what you've been hiding from. And once you do that, once you stop running and start facing, healing can finally take root. Because pain ignored is pain that festers, but pain faced is pain that transforms. Healing through solitude also gives you perspective. When you're constantly surrounded by people, their voices drown out your own. They tell you how to feel, what to do, who to be. And sometimes you carry wounds that aren't even yours. You've absorbed other people's pain, other people's criticism, other people's expectations. But when you step into solitude, you separate what belongs to you from what doesn't. You begin to see clearly, this wound is mine, that shame is not. This pain is real, that guilt was planted. And with that perspective comes freedom. Because healing doesn't just mean repairing what's broken, it means letting go of what was never yours to carry. In solitude, you untangle your soul from the knots that other people tied, and you begin to walk lighter. But solitude doesn't just expose pain, it restores energy. Think about it. Every single day you give pieces of yourself away. You pour into conversations, into responsibilities, into relationships, into endless demands. And little by little, without noticing, you empty out. It's why so many people feel drained without knowing why. Solitude is the place where you refill. It's where your energy stops leaking and starts building. In the quiet, you rest, not just your body, but your spirit. You allow your mind to release the clutter, your emotions to release the tension, and slowly, piece by piece, you feel yourself coming back. Healing is not always about fixing. Sometimes it's about resting. And solitude is the deepest rest you can give your soul. Healing through solitude also teaches forgiveness. Alone, without the pressure of pride, without the need to prove anything, you can finally face the people who hurt you, not to excuse them, but to release yourself. Because carrying anger is carrying poison, and as long as you hold on, the wound stays open. In solitude, you realize that forgiveness is not about them, it's about you. It's about letting go of what chains you to the past so you can walk freely into the future. And sometimes the hardest forgiveness is for yourself. Alone in silence, you face your mistakes, your failures, your regrets, and you learn to extend grace to yourself. You stop punishing yourself for being human, and you start allowing healing to flow where shame once lived. That's the kind of forgiveness that solitude makes possible. And here's the truth, solitude strengthens you for the battles ahead, because life will not stop being hard. Pain will still come, challenges will still rise, storms will still break against you, but solitude builds a reservoir inside you, a well of strength you can draw from when the world gets loud again. When you've learned how to heal alone, you don't fear being broken by the outside, because you know where to go, you know how to recover. You know how to find your center again. Solitude is training ground for resilience. It teaches you that you are not as fragile as you thought, that you can stand, that you can rebuild, that you can heal no matter what comes. And when you carry that kind of strength, the world cannot shake you. The most beautiful part of healing through solitude is the transformation. Because healing is not just about going back to who you were before the pain. It's about becoming someone stronger, wiser, deeper than you've ever been. Solitude doesn't just patch up the cracks, it reshapes you. It refines your character, it sharpens your vision, it deepens your compassion. You come out of solitude not weaker but stronger, not broken but rebuilt, not empty but overflowing. And people may not understand it, they may look at your time alone and call it loneliness. But you'll know the truth. You'll know that solitude was the place you were reborn. That silence was the space where your wounds turned into wisdom, where your pain turned into power. And that is the greatest healing of all. Clarity in isolation is one of the greatest gifts you can ever give yourself. When you're surrounded by people, surrounded by noise, surrounded by expectations, your mind gets foggy. You start carrying not only your own thoughts, but the voices of everyone around you. What they think, what they want, what they expect. And after a while, it's like walking through a storm with no compass. You lose direction, you lose focus, you lose yourself. But when you step into isolation, when you allow the quiet to take over, the fog begins to lift. Suddenly the noise fades, and what's left is your own voice. Clear, steady, unshaken. In that space, you begin to see not just where you are, but where you need to go. That's clarity, and it can only be born in isolation. Because isolation strips away distractions. Every day you're bombarded by constant input. Notifications, conversations, responsibilities pulling you in 100 different directions. It's no wonder so many people feel overwhelmed, like they're drowning in choices and noise. But when you step back, when you cut away the distractions, the unnecessary begins to fall away. You realize how much of what you were chasing doesn't even matter. You begin to see the difference between urgency and importance, between what looks good and what is good for you. That's the power of isolation. It silences the unnecessary so the essential can finally be heard. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you taste clarity, the chaos of distraction will never satisfy you again. Isolation also brings you face to face with truth. In the crowd, it's easy to hide. You can put on a mask, you can play a role, you can keep yourself distracted enough not to face what's really going on inside. But isolation has a way of holding up a mirror you can't turn away from. It shows you the truth about your habits, your fears, your dreams, your flaws. And though it can be uncomfortable, that truth is the key to clarity. Because you can't move forward if you're lying to yourself. You can't build a future on a foundation of denial. Isolation forces honesty, and honesty brings vision. The moment you stop running from the truth is the moment your path becomes clear. Clarity in isolation also sharpens your decisions. How many times have you made choices based on pressure, on the crowd, on what others expected of you, and later you realize it wasn't even what you wanted? That happens because in noise you choose out of reaction. But in isolation, you choose out of reflection. You take the time to sit with your options, to weigh your motives, to listen not to the loudest voice around you, but to the quietest voice within you. And that's the voice that matters. When you learn to make decisions in isolation, your choices become aligned with your truth, your values, your vision. And those kinds of choices don't just lead to temporary satisfaction, they lead to lasting fulfillment. But let's be real, isolation is not always easy. At first it can feel uncomfortable, even scary. The silence feels heavy, the absence of distraction feels strange. You may even feel restless, itching to go back to the noise. But if you stay, if you lean into that discomfort, clarity begins to bloom. It's like water settling after being stirred. At first it's cloudy, but give it time and everything sinks to the bottom, leaving the water clear. That's what isolation does for your mind and soul. It takes the storm of confusion and slowly settles it into peace. And when that clarity comes, it's worth every moment of discomfort because you see yourself in your path like never before. Isolation also strengthens your focus. Once you see clearly, you're no longer tempted by every distraction. You're no longer swayed by every opinion. You know where you're headed, and you can block out the noise that tries to pull you off course. That kind of focus is rare because most people never stop long enough to find it. But in isolation, you train your mind to lock in on what matters most. And once you've tasted that level of focus, you can carry it back into the world. The chaos doesn't shake you. The noise doesn't confuse you because you've already trained yourself in the silence. That clarity becomes your anchor, your guiding star, no matter how loud the world gets around you. And the most powerful part of clarity in isolation is the peace that follows. Because when you know where you stand, when you know who you are, when you know where you're going, peace becomes unshakable. You're no longer chasing approval, no longer second guessing every move, no longer torn between who you are and who they want you to be. You stand firm in your truth, and that peace is priceless. It's the kind of peace that allows you to move with confidence, to act with purpose, to live with freedom. That's what clarity and isolation gives you. It gives you back to yourself. And once you've experienced that, you'll never fear isolation again. You'll seek it because it's in that solitude that you truly see. Building inner strength is not something that happens in the spotlight. It happens in the shadows when no one is watching, when you are alone with yourself. The world will tell you strength is about how much weight you can lift, how much pressure you can endure, how hard you can push. And yes, that's one kind of strength. But the deeper, truer strength, that comes from within. It's the strength to stand when you feel like collapsing, to stay true when compromise looks easier, to keep going when your heart is heavy. And that kind of strength doesn't get built in the noise, it gets built in solitude. Alone, without applause, without validation, without anyone to lean on. You learn to lean on yourself. You discover reserves of power you didn't know you had. That's where inner strength is forged, in the quiet battles, in the moments no one sees. When you're alone, there's no one to carry you, no one to distract you from the struggle, no one to sugarcoat the truth. And that's why solitude is so essential. It forces you to confront your weakness head on. And when you face it, you begin to grow. Inner strength is not about never feeling fear. It's about facing fear and moving anyway. It's not about never falling. It's about learning how to get back up without waiting for someone else to pick you up. Alone, you discover that you can survive disappointment. You can endure heartbreak. You can rebuild after loss. And every time you do, your inner strength multiplies. You start to realize you don't need everything you thought you needed. You are stronger, braver, tougher than you imagined. Inner strength is built through discipline. Discipline is saying yes to what matters and no to what doesn't, even when nobody's there to clap for you. In solitude, you don't have the pressure of eyes on you. And that's the true test. Will you still do the work when no one is watching? Will you still honor your commitments when no one will know if you break them? That's what builds strength, consistency in the quiet. It's easy to be disciplined when you have accountability around you, but when you're alone, it's just you and your choices. And that's where strength grows, in the discipline to choose the hard path, the right path, the path that shapes you into someone unshakable. Every small decision in solitude is a brick laid in the foundation of your inner strength. And let me tell you, inner strength is tested through pain. Solitude sometimes brings with it the sting of loneliness, the ache of regret, the weight of unhealed wounds. But if you endure it, if you sit in that pain instead of running, it transforms you. Strength is not built in comfort. It's built in struggle. Just like muscles grow through resistance, the soul grows through difficulty. In solitude, when the tears fall, when the silence feels heavy, when the doubts creep in, that's the gym for your spirit. Every moment you stay, every fear you face, every wound you begin to heal, you are lifting weights no one else can see. And slowly, without even realizing, you become resilient. You become grounded. You become strong in a way that no storm can shake. Inner strength is also about self-control. In a world that pulls at you from every direction, that tempts you with distractions, that lures you into living for instant gratification, solitude teaches you to say no. No to the things that weaken you. No to the habits that drain you. No to the patterns that keep you small. And in saying no, you make room for the yes that matters. The yes to growth, the yes to purpose, the yes to the life you were meant to live. The yes to the life you were meant to live. Strength is not just about pushing forward. It's about holding back from what doesn't serve you. And in isolation, where the only battle is with yourself, you learn that kind of control. That control is not chains. It's freedom. It's the strength to live by choice, not by impulse. But perhaps the deepest part of building inner strength is learning how to trust yourself. When you're always surrounded by others, you lean on their advice, their validation, their opinions. But in solitude, it's just you. And at first that can feel terrifying, but slowly, as you listen, as you reflect, as you begin to follow your own voice, you realize you can trust it. You realize you are capable of guiding yourself, of making decisions, of standing firm. That trust is the foundation of inner strength, because once you trust yourself, you are no longer easily swayed by doubt or by others. You know who you are. You know what you stand for. And you know you have what it takes to face whatever comes. That's power. That's strength. And the beauty of building inner strength is that once you have it, no one can take it away. Money can be lost. Status can be stripped. Relationships can end. But the strength inside you, that's yours forever. It's the unshakable core that carries you through storms, that anchors you in chaos, that lifts you when the world tries to break you. And that strength, built in solitude, becomes your greatest asset. Because the truth is, life will test you again and again. But if you've built that inner strength, you won't just survive. You'll rise. You'll thrive. You'll look back and realize that solitude wasn't the weakness you feared. It was the furnace that made you strong enough to face anything. Becoming unstoppable is not about never facing obstacles. It's about becoming the kind of person who can't be broken by them. Life will throw storms. It will test you. It will try to bend you. But when you've learned how to grow in silence, how to find yourself in solitude, how to heal when you're alone, you discover something powerful. Nothing outside of you has the authority to stop you.